Well, joining us now on the program, we want to have a conversation about soil health and catch up with the Vice President of Live Earth. Russell Taylor is with us here on the program today. Russell, it has been way too long since we've had a conversation. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're doing well.
Great. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Well, let's start for folks who may not be familiar. Can you give us a little background on Live Earth and some of the things that you guys do as a company and products, et cetera, et cetera? Give us the overview of Live Earth to start.
Yeah, Live Earth, we mine and manufacture humates. Humates are an ancient plant deposit. So think of it as really, really old compost. Those deposits are rich in humic and fulvic acids. And most farmers may have heard humic and fulvic acids. Those are inputs that help make your fertilizers last longer. So we sell ingredients into both agriculture, turf, and some other industries.
Okay. Well, and thinking about humates and soil health and just this overall soil health picture, water conservation, things like that. There's a lot going on out there in agriculture right now, and a lot of talk about climate smart practices and things like that. What's your perspective on some of this conversation, I guess, that we're having really across agriculture here in the last year or so?
So the it's kind of fun because Live Earth has been doing humates and humic acid since the early '80s when our father opened the business. So I'd like to say we're cool long before it was this was trending, but it's fun to be part of the topic in the conversation now. And soil health is not something that it's just a one and done. We're going to do a quick cultural change in our farm and fix the problem. This is you've got to commit to this. Changing soil organic matter takes time and we're just a small portion of that. You're adding humates and humic acids to contribute to your soil organic matter, but there's other things like cultural practices, tillage, even the inputs that you're applying can be negatively impacting your soil organic matter. And people think of soil organic matter and they just kind of lump it in one big bucket, like I got soil organic matter, it's higher, it's low, and they don't dive into the pieces. And soil organic matter can be those components that microbes are breaking down and those components that are left over and stable and sequestered carbon. And each one of those has a role in the soil. Some aid in feeding microbes and some aid in retaining water and nutrients. And so the conversation should go a little bit deeper, talking about soil organic matter. If we're trying to facilitate nutrient retention, water retention, and improving our soil structure, we need to look at how those products are digested by the microbes and how that product resists like microbial degradation over time. So it's kind of a two-pronged approach here. If we're going to talk about water conservation and soil organic matter, we've got to talk about how that organic matter works. And so it's kind of a full farm approach. You've got to look at this as a cultural practice and an amending practice.
I like how you mentioned that sometimes all of this gets lumped into one and that we really need to segment this out. I think that's a key thing to focus on a little bit here is that I know a lot of farmers are having so many different things thrown at them. There's a lot of this push, of course, for, climate smart ag practices in relation to maybe new biofuels and things like that, et cetera, et cetera. But just this overall picture, it's important to break this down into specific segments, to your point, Russell, because otherwise I think it could maybe get a little overwhelming for some folks. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah, and there's some really big pushes for certain amending products which are not designed for all soils, and so that's the key point is looking at these products and how they're going to fit into your farm program, and look at nutrient use efficiency, for example. A lot of your plant nutrients like nitrogen, can actually impact global climate solutions as far as gas emissions. So if you had, let's say, a nitrogen that was applied to the soil and you had the microbes go through denitrification and create nitrous oxide, which is a greenhouse gas, that nitrogen use could have been a contributor to your greenhouse gas emissions. So if you use that nitrogen in a more efficient way, you might not have those greenhouse gas emissions. So by simply changing your soil organic matter and addressing some of the nutrient retention and nutrient utilization, you might impact some of these global solutions. It's not just adding biochar and fixing a problem. I'm not a fan of that. Let's look at the soil problem and let's look at the soil organic matter and how we can change things to retain these crop inputs like water and nutrients. And I think nitrogen is probably the biggest concern for most growers in the Midwest that are looking at, okay, corn, what's my biggest input? It's usually nitrogen.
That's a great point. And I think about this too. Different parts of the country, the soil profiles are different. I mean, heck, you could go, across the road and the soil profile might be different in various area of the country, for instance. So it's in a lot of this case, it's not a one size fits all approach, and you got to find the right products that work and the right practices that work. And I know that's so crucial to this as well, isn't it, Russell?
Yeah, it is. And boiling it down to your comment earlier about the components of soil, humic acid, people talk about it like it's some strange chemical. Humic acid is a component of your soil organic matter. So when you talk about, improving your soil organic matter, that humic acid is kind of the end result of decomposition from compost, manures, all those things. You finally get to these stable carbons. So there's a really fun program. The USDA has a 1% program, and for your listeners, I suggest you look it up because it kind of coaches you how to go through your soil health and look at changing your soil organic matter 1%. And changing your soil organic matter 1% doesn't seem like a lot. But for example, one of the things in that program indicates that the soil organic matter changing 1% can reduce or can actually increase your soil water retention by 30,000 gallons of water per acre, which that fills a few swimming pools. It makes a rain event last longer, or an irrigation event or irrigation application be more effective. So changing your soil organic matter can help retain water, and that water is not nutrient void. That water that's going through your soil profile is taking nutrients with it. So by impacting your water holding capacity, you're also impacting nutrient holding capacity. We recently did a trial on corn with the University of Tennessee. We went from 143 bushels of corn to 163 bushels of corn just by simply adding the humic acid with the nitrogen. And it's just little tricks like that where you can actually make that nitrogen last longer and make a more efficient use of it by getting the nutrients interacting with your soil organic matter and organic acids.
Fascinating stuff. Well, and with humic acid and the work you guys do with humates for soil health and more, where can folks get more information about the work you guys do, Russell? I'm sure online you guys have a lot of resources available, things like that. More info on products, etc. Where can folks get started with a conversation to look more into this?
So we're a small family business. So first of all, we're happy to pick up the phone and answer any questions. So yeah, give us a call. Our website is liveearth.com. You spell that with one E. It's liveearth.com.
Fantastic. Before we let you go, this is really a fun topic and one that I think is very important, Russell. What final thoughts would you share with producers listening in today as they're thinking about their soil health and looking at maybe taking advantage of, adding some humates in and things like that, and they want to learn more? I mean, what would you reiterate to folks as they're really thinking about this right now?
When you're talking about soil organic matter, you're playing the long game. This is not something you're going to change quickly, and you've got to look at your mindset of the total farm future, because a lot of guys have done soil organic matter trials and said, well, it didn't work this year. And I saw one done recently by the Utah State University where they actually went back 30 years later after an application of a large amount of compost. And they said, wow, wait, this is still making a difference. This is making a difference in the water holding capacity and the grain production for the last decades. You're trying to change soil organic matter. You're not going to do it on a 1-year pencil out. You're going to have to look at this over a long period of time and say, we're going to conserve water and fertilizer, and it's going to make a big difference in a bottom line year after year after year.
Well, again, you can find more online at liveearth.com. And with that, the VP of Live Earth, Russell Taylor. Russell, thanks for joining us here on the program today. Always good to talk with you. We'll look forward to having you back on the show again soon.
Great. Thanks, Jesse.
Make sure to subscribe to the Market Talk YouTube channel. You can watch our latest interviews with top market analysts in the country, find bonus content, and much more. It's easy. Just go to youtube.com/@MarketTalkAg and hit the subscribe button. Or you can search for Market Talk Ag on YouTube.